Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're really digging into a topic that hits close to home for a lot of us, uh, how we measure student success in higher ed.
Yeah.
We've got some pretty thought-provoking sources you sent over that suggest we might be, well, measuring the wrong things. It's almost like training for a marathon, right? But only focusing on how many miles you're logging and not how fast or how strong you're actually getting.
Right.
You know, kind of missing the point, don't you think?
That's a great analogy. You've hit on a core issue here. We're relying on what we call proxies for learning. These are things like, attendance or grades or whether someone graduates. Right.
Yeah.
But these are just stand-ins, right? They don't actually guarantee that a student has actually learned anything.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, a diploma might get you in the door for a job interview, sure, but it's your skills that will actually land you the job and help you succeed.
So, okay, let's unpack this a bit. The sources we're looking at, they talk about these proxies being potentially dangerous. Like, if we're not measuring actual learning, what's the real harm here? What's the big deal?
Well, I think the danger is that we create a system that values, checking boxes over genuine learning.
Yeah.
If colleges are only rewarded for having high graduation rates, for example, they might be tempted to lower standards just to push students through.
Right.
It becomes more about, getting students in and out the door and not about what they're actually learning during their time there.
It's almost like one of the sources called it focusing on inputs and outputs.
Yeah.
Rather than the actual outcomes of what students can do with their knowledge.
Exactly.
Like we're rewarding schools for the quantity of graduates they're churning out, not the quality of the education itself.
Yeah. And, this creates all sorts of strange incentives, right? Imagine a college focusing heavily on boosting attendance, for example, even if students aren't engaged in the material.
Right.
Someone could be physically present, but mentally checked out, and the system wouldn't know the difference.
So we could have, like, a student acing all the tests by memorizing everything.
Exactly.
But then completely freezing up when they're actually asked to apply those concepts to your real-world problem, right?
Absolutely.
Or, on the flip side, you have a student who is, like, deeply engaged in learning outside the classroom. They're building a portfolio, working on passion projects, but none of that shows up on their academic record.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's like we're rewarding students for jumping through hoops, not for actual learning and growth.
Right.
And this disconnect, I think, becomes even more apparent when we look at what employers are looking for versus what our current metrics are measuring.
Yeah, one source made this point that really resonated with me. They called it procedural achievements. Meaning just going through the motions. It's like the difference between memorizing the steps to bake a cake and actually being able to bake a cake.
Yeah, right. And this creates a real gap, right, between what students are learning in school and what they actually need to succeed in the real world. Employers are crying out for graduates who can solve problems, think critically, communicate effectively, what we often call soft skills.
Yes.
But those aren't things you can easily capture with a GPA or a standardized test score.
It's ironic, though, because those are the skills
They are.
that really matter for long-term success, no matter what field you end up going into.
Exactly.
Have you ever felt like you learned more from a side project
Oh, yeah.
or an internship than you did in some of your classes? I know I have.
Absolutely.
Because those experiences force you to, like, actually apply your knowledge in a way that exams just can't replicate.
Absolutely. If we want to prepare students for the real world, we need to start valuing those real-world experiences and giving them the credit they deserve. So if these traditional proxies aren't cutting it, then how should we be measuring student success? What does a system that actually values learning really look like?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And, the source points towards directly assessing skills and competencies. And what I find fascinating here is that it's not about throwing out those traditional measures altogether.
Right.
But it's about adding another layer that captures what students can actually do with their knowledge.
Precisely. Things like, portfolios, performance-based assessments, or real-world projects. These can provide much better evidence of a student's abilities. Imagine a nursing student, right? Alongside their coursework, they also have to demonstrate how they would handle, say, a simulated emergency. It's one thing to know the theory, but quite another to actually apply it under pressure.
That's a fantastic example. Or think about a business student, maybe developing a full business plan as their capstone project.
Yeah.
That's such a tangible demonstration of their understanding, right? Not just regurgitating facts on a test. It would not only offer better evidence of their learning, but it would also be so much more engaging and relevant for them.
Right, and it would better prepare them, for the realities of the workforce. This is about bridging the gap, I think, between academia
Right.
and the real-world application of skills.
But shifting away from these traditional metrics, that would be a massive undertaking, wouldn't it?
It would.
Grades, graduation rates, they're so ingrained
They are.
in our education system.
Yeah.
It feels almost impossible to change.
It wouldn't be easy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But if we're truly committed to student success, then we need to be bold enough to question our assumptions and embrace new ways of thinking.
So the issue isn't with proxies themselves, right? It's that we've let them become substitutes.
That's right.
For genuine learning. We've kind of lost sight of what we're actually trying to achieve. It's like mistaking the map for the actual journey.
That's a brilliant way to put it. We've become so fixated on measuring, the inputs and outputs of education that we've forgotten about the outcomes, the real impact on students' lives and their ability to contribute to the world.
Yeah, one source put it pretty powerfully. They said, anything less undermines the integrity of education and fails to deliver on the promise of success. And it's a wake-up call, right? We can't just settle for the status quo. We owe it to ourselves, to future generations.
We do.
To create a system that truly values learning and empowers students to reach their full potential.
I couldn't agree more. It's about fundamentally rethinking what we value in education and how we measure success.
It's not just about tweaking the metrics, right? It's about a complete shift in mindset.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where a student's portfolio, showcasing their skills and projects carried as much weight as their GPA.
Now that would be a game changer.
Right.
It would encourage students to go above and beyond, to really explore their passions and build a tangible record of what they can do. It wouldn't just be about grades, but about demonstrating real competency.
And think about the message it would send. We'd be telling students, we value what you can do, not just what you can memorize.
Exactly.
It would empower them to really take ownership of their education and focus on developing skills that are relevant to their goals.
Absolutely.
One source highlighted how the current system, with its over-reliance on these proxies, can actually erode public trust in higher education.
That's right.
People start to question the value of a degree, especially if it doesn't translate into tangible skills for the workforce.
That's a crucial point. When a diploma is seen as this guarantee of success,
right,
regardless of whether the graduate is actually prepared, it devalues the whole system. We need to rebuild that trust by ensuring that a college education is truly a pathway to success. Not just a piece of paper, but a transformative experience that equips students with the knowledge and skills they need to actually contribute meaningfully to the world.
So let's dive a little deeper into this idea of shifting the focus towards skills and competencies. What would that look like in practice? How do we move away from just checking boxes to actually ascending those real-world abilities?
Well, the sources offer some really compelling examples. We're talking about things like, portfolios, performance-based assessments, real-world projects, things that allow students to demonstrate their capabilities.
Okay.
Instead of just memorizing facts for a multiple-choice exam, imagine a business student, for example, developing a full business plan for a new venture as their final project.
Right.
That's a tangible demonstration of their understanding of marketing, finance, operations, all those essential elements of running a business.
That makes so much sense. It's just a much more authentic way to assess their learning.
It is.
Than just a traditional exam. And for the student, it's a much more engaging and relevant experience, right? It bridges that gap between academia and the workforce.
Exactly. Or think about a design student building a website, or a future teacher leading a mock classroom, or a budding engineer designing a prototype. These are all ways for students to showcase their skills and get real-world experience.
So it's about moving away from the abstract and theoretical to the concrete and applicable.
Absolutely.
And it's about valuing a wider range of skills and talents, not just those that are easily measured on a standardized test, right?
Right.
One source argued that we need to completely overhaul our funding model, moving away from rewarding institutions based on proxies like graduation rates and towards a system that actually incentivizes those learning outcomes. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's an idea that's definitely worth exploring. Right now, many colleges are incentivized to focus on things like graduation rates because that's what's tied to their funding.
Yeah.
But what if we started rewarding them for producing graduates who are truly prepared for the workforce, right? Who can think critically, solve problems, and adapt to new challenges? Imagine the impact that could have.
It would be revolutionary. It would encourage a focus on quality over quantity, right? Ensuring that graduates aren't just credentialed,
That's right.
but truly competent and ready to contribute.
Exactly.
And it would signal a shift in our values, right? Showing that we prioritize genuine learning over simply checking boxes.
Absolutely. It would also empower students to take ownership of their education and focus on developing the skills and knowledge that are most relevant to their goals and aspirations.
It all sounds fantastic in theory, but I have to ask, is this kind of systemic change even possible?
That's a good question.
Higher education is such a massive and complex system, it's hard to imagine a complete overhaul like this actually happening.
It's definitely a daunting challenge, there's no denying that. But I believe it's a challenge that's worth taking on. The stakes are just too high. We're talking about the future of our workforce, the future of our economy, the future of our society.
Yeah. If we continue down this path of prioritizing these proxies over genuine learning, we're setting up future generations for failure. We're sending them out into the world with a false sense of security, a diploma that might not actually represent the skills and knowledge they need to thrive.
And that's why it's so crucial to have these conversations, to raise awareness about the limitations of our current system and to explore alternative approaches. We can't just settle for the status quo. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations to create a system that truly values learning and empowers students to reach their full potential.
You're right, complacency isn't an option here.
Yeah.
This isn't just about abstract ideas, it's about real people's lives and futures.
That's right.
We've been focusing on that, the systemic level.
Right.
But I think it's important to bring it back down to the individual.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a student who's navigating this system right now? A student who's feeling that pressure to chase grades and check boxes, but who also wants to, develop those real-world skills and find their own path?
That's a great question. I would say, don't let the system define your success. Don't get so caught up in chasing grades that you lose sight of the bigger picture. Remember that your worth is not defined by a GPA or a test score. You are so much more than that.
So it's not about ignoring grades altogether, but about putting them in perspective.
That's right.
It's about focusing on the process of learning, on developing those skills and competencies, on building a portfolio of work that showcases your abilities.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to seek out opportunities beyond the classroom, internships, volunteer work, personal projects, anything that allows you to apply your knowledge, to experiment, and to grow.
Those are the experiences that will truly prepare you for the workforce and for life in general. They allow you to explore your passions, develop your skills, and discover who you are and what you want to achieve in the world.
And remember, success isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. It's about finding your own path, your own purpose. And it's about having the courage to pursue that path, even if it leads you off the beaten track.
This has been such an insightful conversation.
It has.
We've really unpacked, I think, the complexities of this issue
Yeah.
and explored some potential solutions. It's clear that we need a shift in mindset, a move away from proxies and towards a system that values genuine learning and empowers students to reach their full potential.
I completely agree. It's been a pleasure discussing this with you.